Today's video, new ideas about how to prevent your bike from getting stolen. Hey everyone, I'm Tom and this is Shifter, a channel about urban cycling, bike commuting, and the ways we get around our cities. And if you like this video, please consider subscribing. And if you want some more bonus content, please consider becoming a Shifter member. There's a link in the description down below. In survey after survey, what discourages people from riding a bike mostly is fear of getting hit by a car, but right below that is fear of having their bike stolen. And for the first time in a long time, we're seeing green shoots of innovation pop up, new ideas about preventing bike theft. And today I want to tell you about some of these ideas. And rather than just getting my layman's opinion on these things, I thought I would bring in an expert. You probably know Maddie from her great Instagram channel, Cargo Bike Mama, where she documents her cargo bike life with her family. She's kind of got a badass day job as well.
Thanks, Tom. My name is Maddie and I am a professor of criminal justice at the Manhattan University. And not only am I a cargo biker, I also actually have a PhD in criminal justice. So I'm very excited to talk about bike theft from an empirical standpoint.
Okay, let's get started. Bike valet parking. When you hear the phrase valet parking, you probably think of some rich snob tossing the keys to their Maserati to some poor, hapless worker outside of a restaurant. But I'm really excited about a different kind of valet parking that seems to be cropping up all over the place, bike valet. I've talked about this before, but I was just in Victoria, BC, and City Council there has funded a year-round, free, secure bike valet parking for all users downtown. Basically, you just drop your bike off at this facility and go about your day, and a city staff member keeps an eye on it and keeps it safe. Their data suggests it's encouraging more people to ride downtown and different types of people to ride downtown, especially people with expensive e-bikes, and they haven't lost a bike to theft yet. Let's hear what Maddie thinks about this one.
So bike valet is absolutely on point. And let me explain to you a little bit why that is from a criminological perspective. So the vast majority of crime, especially bike crime, are crimes of opportunity, and they can be tied directly to the environment, meaning that the environment around the bike can promote or inhibit bike theft. And I like to look at what's called routine activities theory. It is very empirically sound, it's empirically based, it's been heavily tested, and it suggests that when you have the presence of three things, and I'll explain what those three things are, you will have an increased likelihood of a crime to occur. And the first part is that you have a suitable target. In this case, it would be the bikes. These are these suitable targets, they're out in the open. You have the lack of capable guardianship, meaning that somebody is not there, there's no eyes on the bike, there might not be lights, and you have a motivated offender, right? In this case, it would be the bike thief. And if you have all three of these, right, you will have a crime, right? And a crime will occur. And the valet parking would be a significant step in reducing the bike theft because it naturally increases the presence of these guardians and it increases guardianships of these bike. And basically, bike theft, we know that bike theft is a deterrent for many people to be out biking or taking out their expensive e-bikes. So if cities want people biking, then they really should spend the money to increase the guardianship and make people more confident and comfortable in the parking of these bikes.
Next up is an idea that I hadn't thought much about until it was brought to me by the sponsor of today's video, Velosurance, America's best bike insurance. Bike insurance, now I know what you're thinking, why would I need bike insurance? Isn't my bike covered by my home insurance? And the answer to that is like, yeah, maybe, not, sort of, maybe in some cases. So hear me out. Let's say the deductible on your home insurance policy is $1,000, but you want to keep those premiums down, so you raise that deductible to $2,000. Now let's say that bike you bought for $5,000 a few years ago gets stolen. Most insurance policies cover the actual cash value of the bike, and maybe that bike today is worth $2,500. After you pay out that $2,000 deductible, that leaves you with $500 to put towards a new bike, which is not a lot. And in this era of hugely expensive hurricanes and natural disasters and wildfires and floods, insurance companies tend to be scrutinizing every claim more closely than they used to. Maybe you don't want to put that home insurance claim on a bike theft. This is where Velosurance comes in. Velosurance offers a specialty bike insurance that is a separate policy from your home insurance policy. The policy covers the bike for its declared value, not depreciated value, even for theft away from home, as long as it's properly locked. Velosurance also covers crashes and accidental damage to your bike, even when it's in transit. It even covers bike races, which almost no other policy will cover. Velosurance also offers optional medical coverage if you are riding your bike and you're hit by a car, which can help cover some of the gaps in your other medical insurance policies. And e-bikes too, lots of homeowner associations these days are requiring insurance if you want to store your e-bike indoors. Velosurance has you covered for that as well. So give Velosurance some thought. There's a link in the description down below where you can see more information. And my thanks goes out to Velosurance for sponsoring this video. bike registry databases are finally getting some traction. There's been a resistance to the idea of bike registries over the years, mostly because people who tend to propose registering bikes don't really understand what they're proposing. That suburban boomer in the comment section who suggested bikes should be registered and licensed because they're annoyed by them is wrong in so many ways. But volunteer anti-bike theft registries, well, they seem to be working. The basic idea is that when you buy a bike, you take some photos of yourself with it, you upload it to this shared database. Then if it gets stolen, at the very least, you have some evidence of ownership that if it does get recovered by the police, that it can get returned to you. I've done a couple of videos over the years about the success of Project 5 to 9 in Vancouver in reducing the number of bikes being stolen. And I live in a city where Bike Index is being promoted by the police and by local bike shops. Both are really interesting ideas. The problem with these voluntary registries in the past was that they kind of existed outside of the police ecosystem, and so the cops didn't have access to them, they didn't use them. Well, that finally seems to be changing. Recently, Project 5 to 9 announced that it's being integrated across the entire country of New Zealand and here in Canada in the entire province of British Columbia. Why does this matter? Well, having a bike registry in one city is fine, but as soon as a stolen bike leaves that city, that bike is gone. It means police will never be able to find the rightful owner if it's recovered. So seeing this progress, it feels like one step forward to having a national or even an internationally linked system of databases where all police and all citizens can have access to this information and share it when a bike gets stolen. Maddie, what do you think?
So I love the idea of bike registries. I think that anywhere where we can collate the information about ownership and serial numbers is also great. But I think this particular type of theft strategy does have its limitations, and I'm going to go over some of these limitations. Having a single source of information or a database can be very challenging because it begs the question, who is holding onto these databases or who is managing these databases? Is it a third party outside of law enforcement? Is it the FBI because it's now across state lines? You know, are they going to collate the information like they do with the Uniform Crime Report? Or is it going to be local law enforcement where the bike was purchased, because they would be the first stepping stone of who is investigating the theft of this bike? And, you know, I think it's also important to consider in America that we have around 18,000 different police force. You know, each one is being run in a unique way. And depending on their size, structure, local norms, local infrastructure, the training practices, this is all going to produce differing behaviors among the police departments and the police officers. So I just think it's really important that we think about how that might impact the way that the data is collected, these registry data is collected, and how this bike data is standardizing, right? So to cooperate and collaborate among law enforcement is a great idea, but I think in practical application is actually very challenging. You know, like with gun registry and guns being sold, and then, you know, the secondary market, it's not uncommon for serial numbers or identifiers to be scraped off and removed. So keeping in mind that, like, it's a great idea, but I think it is best operated or best implemented in conjunction with other bike security measures.
Public locking bike racks. This is a video of a thing I tried recently in Vancouver, and it looks like a typical bike rack, and it kind of is, but there's a twist. This is an app-based locking bike rack. So basically, a municipality or a company puts this out on the street, you're riding around and maybe you've forgotten your lock or you don't trust your lock. Well, you come upon this, you park your bike here, and you take out the app on your phone, which unlocks the rack, and you can lock it up using your phone as well. If somebody tries to steal your bike from this rack, well, then an alarm goes off on your phone. It also alerts the company managing this rack so that you can come and investigate. These are new to Canada and they exist in a few places. They're kind of being marketed to like owners of buildings or university campuses, which seems like a good place for them, but I could also see them working at residential buildings as well. At first, I was a bit skeptical for me because I'm not leaving home without my bike lock anyway, but I think there might be a place for this in the ecosystem of bike safety in our cities. Let's see what Maddie has to say about this.
So I think with public locking bike racks, I think that's a great idea. Anything that adds an extra layer of friction, right? Anything that makes the bike a less suitable target. So if it's having public available locks, then that's a great thing. And most of the time, I do think that people are also going to be using their own bike locks in conjunction with a public bike bike lock as well. So, I think it is helpful. And, I think, again, anything that increases the guardianship, like an additional lock, and decreases the suitability of this target, like, again, having a secondary lock that's available publicly, is going to be really helpful for improving people's confidence and increasing the likelihood that they will take their e-bike out and store it in public places.
Loaner lock programs. This might be the simplest innovation on this list, but there's something I like about it that I can't quite put my finger on. Now, this exists in a lot of places already, but I'm seeing it more and more. Basically, it works like this. A retail business or a coffee shop or a restaurant buys a few bike locks, and if someone who rides their bike to their destination doesn't have a lock, they just loan it out to them. For business owners, it's a cheap and easy way to encourage people to come to their business on their bikes and get into their store. For cyclists, it's a cheap and easy way to add maybe an extra layer of security to your bike if you'd already brought a lock, or maybe it's the first layer if you don't bring a lock at all, which you shouldn't do. Like, it's quick and easy and affordable and can be set up, and maybe does even create a little sense of community by people loaning things to each other. Let's see what Maddie thinks about this.
As far as the loaner bike lock program goes, or the loaner bike lock idea, I don't love this one. And because I think you're then being reliant on the quality of these other locks, you don't really know what you're going to be getting. And, are they anti-angle grinder? Are they just cheap available locks? You really aren't decreasing the suitability of these targets if they're crappy locks, right? And so that's the number one reason, like, why these bikes get stolen is someone comes in with, like, power clippers or with an angle grinder, and they're just able to cut through these locks. And so I don't really see how these loaner locks are going to be a significant deterrent, because if someone wants to steal a bike and all you have is this, like, kind of crappy lock, then they're going to steal the bike, right? They're going to figure out a way to do it. And so, I just don't think it's really addressing any of the environmental factors and increasing the guardianship and reducing the suitability of this target. So I would probably pass on this.
GPS integration. Now, I've made videos in the past about my skepticism around location tracking as a bike theft prevention measure, but it's been really interesting to see how this space is evolving. My beef in the past with this is that it just feels unworkable in the real world. Say your bike gets stolen and you've got an Apple AirTag on it. Well, then you can track your bike to the rough location that it's been brought to after it's been stolen, but then what? Are you going to go all dark night on the thief and try to steal it back? Are you going to break into a residential building to get it back? Are you going to confront some organized crime boss to get it back? Are the police going to join you in this quest? Is this enough evidence to get a warrant from a judge? The answer to these for a lot of people is probably no, 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 and no. What I like, however, is the bike theft prevention potential of GPS tracking. And that's, to me, what's been interesting, is how more and more bike brands are integrating location tracking into their builds, into their frames, or built into the bike in some way. It's great to see companies like Bosch, which makes a great pedal assist system, integrating location tracking into the pedal assist. If it becomes well known and obvious that every bike with a Bosch pedal assist system has location tracking enabled, will that be a bike theft deterrent? What if every good quality e-bike has location tracking? Maybe that will be deterrent as well. I don't know. Let's hear what Maddie thinks about this.
So I love the conversation about GPS, and I think adding GPS to your bike is really important, but I think it's also very important to understand that the conversation around GPS is complicated. On one hand, it increases the perception of safety, right? By increasing guardianship, right? You have eyes on your bike on your phone, or you can just check on it anytime, but it doesn't necessarily prevent theft. And I'll explain why that is. When we look at deterrence, right? We're looking to deter theft. By definition, it means that a person is coming to the situation, they're looking at the bike, and they're weighing the cost benefits of their actions and the possible rewards of having this bike versus the costs of getting caught for a crime. But this is a very complicated idea, because it assumes that whoever is committing the crime is in a rational state of mind to be doing this cost benefit analysis. And many crimes like opportunistic theft or crimes of opportunity, right, are not necessarily being done by somebody who's in a rational state of mind, right? It may be need-based, it may be related to drug addiction, it may be related to mental illness. All of these result in a diminished capacity to have the ability to do an appropriate cost-benefit analysis. And so as such, GPS is not necessarily going to reduce the likelihood of theft in these cases. Second, for the cost benefit analysis to work, you really would need for the person who's going to be stealing the bike to know about the GPS, right? Like this is kind of a marketing problem, right? Like if they don't know about the GPS, then they really aren't able to factor that into their cost benefit analysis of the likelihood of risk versus, the risk versus the benefits. And I just don't know, that they know about it. I don't know that they necessarily care about it. And if they don't know about it and they don't care about it, then it's not actually deterring theft to begin with. The challenge, to your point, becomes enforcement, right? Like, your bike has GPS. Okay, let's say it's been stolen. How do you get your bike back? Do you just show up to where it is on a map? You know where it is on a map. Then what do you do? And when Jeff had his bike stolen, which happened about a year ago, the police basically went up to him and said, "Hey, we can't go in, right? Because there are restrictions on going into private property without a warrant." But the police would escort Jeff to the location if he had GPS on it, and helped him as muscle. And I think that that's an important thing to keep in mind, is that the actual enforcement of GPS on your bike can be very challenging, right? And, but there are companies like Backpedal out of the UK that actually do send in, former military and law enforcement type goons, right? They knock on people's doors in very vigilante style and they will collect the bikes. But I think that that is not as common.
There you go. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I think it probably goes without saying that all of these strategies need to happen in a complementary way to the justice system and to programs to help people in need. I'm going to give the last word to Maddie, who had some really great practical advice to all of us for how we can think about keeping our own bikes safe.
All this is to say is, if we can approach it from a very empirical standpoint, thinking about routine activities from a capable guardianship, can we increase that capable guardianship? Can we make the bike less suitable, create more friction? This is one of the things that I like to do with the motorcycle covers, right? Is the motorcycle covers I always put on my bikes. Basically, anywhere I'm at, anytime my bike is going to be out for more than an hour, I don't really want to draw attention to it. And covering it with a motorcycle cover makes it a less suitable target. And you can't control the offender. All you can do is control the environment that your bike is in and what you do to make your bike a less suitable target. So thanks so much. I hope this is helpful.
Big thanks to Maddie for her help on this one, and thanks to all of you for watching. I'll see you next time.